harder, make me lose my breath, make me water, make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water. Normally, I could keep my cool, but tonight I'm whining. I'ma be in a dangerous mood, can you match my timing? Telling me that you're really about it, what you're hiding. Talk is cheap, so show me that you understand how I like it. Can you blow my mind? Set off my whole body. If I give you my time, can you snatch my soul from me? I don't wanna wait. Come take me where I ain't been before. Can you blow my mind? Set off my whole body, whole body.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to FINDC. We're going to be starting the program soon, so if you could please make your way to the multipurpose room. It's going to be a quick few minutes, and then we could go back to talking and mingling. Nice.
Hopefully, you can last all night, don't get too excited. Privacy, you ain't gotta go nowhere, you can stay inside it. Can you blow my mind? Set off my whole body. If I give you my time, can you snatch my soul from me? I don't wanna wait. Come take me where I ain't been before.
Test, test. Oh, there we go.
Set off my whole body, whole body. Make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water.
Hello, and welcome to FINDC. We're going to be beginning our program shortly. It's just going to be a few minutes of our fellow alumni speaking. If you could please make your way to the multipurpose room now, that would be great. Thank you so much. If you could please start making your way to the multipurpose room. Thank you. Can you hear me? No? It's maxed out.
Make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water, make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water.
As you promised me that I was more than all the miles combined, you must have had yourself a change of heart like halfway through the drive, because your voice trailed off exactly as you passed my exit sign. Kept on
Hello, hello?
driving, left our future to the right.
Hello?
I'm stuck between my anger.
There you go. Now you can hear me. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to FINDC. If you could please make your way to the multi-purpose room, we're going to start the program. It's going to be nice and quick, and then we're going to be back to mingling and talking.
Doc told me to travel, but there's COVID on the planes, and I love Vermont, but it's the season of the sticks. And I saw your mom, she forgot that I existed, and it's half my fault, but I just like to play the victim. I'll drink alcohol till my friends come home for Christmas, and I'll dream each night of some version of you that I might not have, but I did not lose. Now you're tired tracks and one pair of shoes, and I'm split in half, but that'll have to do. So I thought that if I piled something good and all my bad, that I could cancel out the darkness I inherited from Dad. No, I am no longer funny, cause I miss the way you laugh. You once called me forever, now you still can't call me back. And I love Vermont.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks. So we want to thank you all for being here. It's kind of a special night. It's our first ever time participating in Panther Alumni Week, so thank you for being a part of that. My name is Michelle Toshe. I'm the Associate Director here. So we're very excited to have you. We like to start off our event by showing our video. If you've seen it before, I'm sorry, but for the rest of y'all, enjoy. We can try it at the end. We'll see the technical difficulties fix itself again.
You can talk to the, what are they called?
Technically working on
Security
it.
manager for.
In the meantime, I'll introduce
Wow, this whole incident.
our Associate Vice President,
Palestine.
Carlos Becerra.
Thank you, Michelle. She's single-handedly collaborated with our Alumni Relations Office and the Alumni Association. Happen to have a board member of the FIU Alumni Association visiting us here from Orlando, Alex Corza. Great to have you here. Well, thank you. Tonight feels very much, and I think already in conversations we've overheard, very much in the family, which is what makes this night very familial and fun. Special treat, and I'll let our amazing moderator do the formal intros, but it's exciting that today you're going to get a sample of individual successes of our own family members. Someone that years ago we first met as a Hill intern, and today is not working on the Hill, but is working at another exciting location. Someone that's new on the scene as a political appointee, leading very important work. So might have only been here, actually celebrates a year in a few days. Someone, researcher focused on criminal justice issues at a very important, august, other institution, I will say, but no, institution nearby. And in addition to not only having one of our panelists being focused on criminal justice, it's a pleasure that here today we have a lot of our faculty, because welcome to FIU and DC on any given week and day. We have visiting folks from Miami. So with criminal justice on our mind, Melba Pearson with our Green School is here for the week for different research and engagement with local and state county governments. I just met for the first time, but not the last, Mariana Martinez, an alumna at the Department of Education, working in a very important office. So as I'm introducing a lot of these folks, I would hope also that in the question and answer session and even afterwards, we can get a taste for life lessons. Dean Inez Triay of the College of Engineering and Computing. She reminded me that we've had her on our faculty for about 11 years, but prior to that, served for 15 years at the Department of Energy as Assistant Secretary, no less, leading important work, and we're very proud of success she's had. Notice everyone I've mentioned to date is a woman. How cool is that? Celebration of women's success and FIU Panther alumni women's success. But to round it out, we've also got Brooke Burhane with our College of Engineering as well. Glad to have him here. Very much focused on engineering education, which is something that Dean Triay is in town for as well. So I just wanted to touch on a couple individuals there, because I think in addition to our great panel, we're excited that those of you here, and I'm looking at many of you, are very much the examples of mentors and folks that we want our students interacting with. And if it hasn't been pointed out, we're broadcasting tonight's program because we know it's going to be very rich and helpful to many of our students that are 1,000 miles down south. So with that, I'm pleased to welcome one of the newest Panthers on the scene, Catherine Mesa, who's interning at our office here with us and will be moderating tonight's program. Catherine.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Mesa, and I'm an Honors College senior studying political science with a minor in international relations, and I'm pursuing undergraduate academic certificates in human rights, political transitions, and civic leadership here at Florida International University. I'm currently the governmental relations intern with the FIU in Washington, D.C. office, where I help advocate for FIU's federal priority themes and aid in appropriations and strategic planning initiatives. I am also a current FIU Hamilton Scholar, which is a unique program that FIU in Washington, D.C. Talent Lab and FIU Honors College hosts for a select cohort of students to pursue paid internship in the D.C. area, engage in a semester-long policy advocacy project, all while receiving a scholarship and professional development and networking opportunities. For those students interested in applying for the fall 2024 semester for Hamilton Scholars, you can find more information on our website or reach out to any one of us after the program. We would like to extend a special thank you to everyone for coming tonight for the official start for the Panther Alumni Week with our special panel of recognized FIU Alumni Association alumni who will be sharing their experiences and insights from their career and their professional journeys. So I would like to start off by introducing Ali Rafa. She is a 2014 Honors College graduate from the Lee Chaplin School of Journalism and Media, and who also interned with the U.S. Senate after her graduation. She is currently a White House correspondent for NBC News, where she engages in contributing coverage of the Biden administration to all of the network's platforms, including Today, Nightly News, MSNBC, and NBC News Now. Next, we would like to introduce Inez Hernandez, the first ever Counselor for Equity for the U.S. Department of Commerce. She served as a counselor for the startup FIU and is an FIU Master's in Public Administration graduate. Her work and commitment to community development, social impact, affordable housing, and small business development and financial inclusion led her to become an FIU Torch Awards Community Awards recipient. Last but certainly not least, we would like to introduce Dr. Andrea Headley, who is an assistant professor at the McCourt School for Public Policy at Georgetown University, an affiliate fellow at the Center of Innovations in Community Safety at Georgetown Law, and is also a visiting scholar on race, policing, and crime at the National Police Foundation. She received both her PhD in Public Policy and Administration and a master's in Criminal Justice from Florida International University. So I would like to start off with our first question of the night. And for our panel, you are all free to answer and jump in whenever you'd like. And so I'd like to start off. So looking back on your career paths, was there a specific moment or decision that significantly impacted your trajectory? And what advice would you give current students or your younger alumni facing similar crossroads? Whatever you like.
Now it is. Hi. So you said, was there a significant moment that impacted the trajectory? And what was the second part?
What advice would you give current students or younger alumni facing similar crossroads?
I would say, as far as a significant moment, I don't think it was one specific moment. I think it was one specific decision that had longer lasting impacts. And I think that was just to basically never underestimate the importance and value of each specific conversation you have, whether it be with your mentors or whether you're networking with people outside of your field. I know personally, like Carlos mentioned, that when I first met him, I was a Hill intern, and that was right after I graduated from FIU. I was actually pre-law and I wanted to go to law school, and I graduated a year early, and everyone in Miami was telling me, well, go intern on Capitol Hill, like just fill up your resume with a bunch of internships and it'll help. And so I interned in the press shop of a Senate office, and very quickly people were like, I think that would probably be a big waste of money and time if you don't want to end up being an attorney but you still go to law school, which they ended up being very correct. But through that experience, being on the Hill, but knowing that I did not want to work on Capitol Hill or end up being an attorney, I wanted to be in broadcast journalism, but more of like a legal analyst. It just made me go out and talk to as many people as I possibly could. And so I think that was that's probably my best advice, is just never underestimate what you could take out of a conversation. And who knows, like whoever you're talking to, how many people they can branch off to and connect you with, that's just invaluable information and connections.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
beautiful.
I'll go next. Let me ask you a question. I'm sure by now you have an idea what you want to be when you grow up, but do you know why? And so for me, one of the things I ask everybody when I first meet them is, what is your North Star? Because doors will open and you will meet people, but how do you know that you're going in the right direction and it serves the purpose that you're here for? And so I agree with you. I think as many people as you can talk to, but as clear as you can get as to your North Star, I can tell you, at least for me, it's been critical. And by the way, when I say North Star, it doesn't even have to be, it's not, oh, do I want to be president of the United States? That would be a great, I think, lever. But I would ask you why. Why do you want to be president of the United States? Why do you want to be a journalist? Why do you want to be a counselor for equity? And for me, it took a while for me to figure out like the right words. But if you look at my trajectory, it includes all kinds of crazy things from anthropology and research and all kinds of stuff. But when you boil it down, I care about vulnerable communities, and I care that they have access to dignity and autonomy. Now, there's a lot of levers you can pull, but for me, economic mobility, the ability to earn an income, send your children to college, be able to plan for retirement, leads to dignity and autonomy. So that was the lever I wanted to pull on, and I've made a career. And I have to say, you also realize there's unusual bedfellows, like people who don't make sense, but they make sense when you know what your North Star is. So that's not really clear advice, other than just, I'm going to ask you that question when I talk to you later. So make sure you have some time to think about it.
So I would echo the things that were said by the prior panelists. The thing that I would add, well, I'll answer the what advice would you give last. I think the moment for me that made an impact in my trajectory was when I was an undergrad. So I went to the University of Miami for undergrad, and I had a professor who was a mentor of mine who really pushed me on why I wanted to go to law school. I had it set that I was going to be a public defender. I was going to stay in South Florida. I was never going to leave. I had it all planned out. And she really pushed me to like get to the why. And for me, the why was like I wanted to impact change for people that looked like me. And in coming to that, I realized that there were multiple ways to do that. So going to law school, being a public defender is one. I realized that, you know, the salary and the loans, the math, it wasn't adding up for my situation at the time. But she introduced me to research. And so I got involved with her research lab, and I realized that I could use research as a lever to impact change in policy spaces. And so that opened up a new world for me, going to get a master's degree, going to get a PhD. I'm a public policy professor at Georgetown now. I interact with criminal justice decision makers. I work with police departments. And so there are multiple ways to get to the impact that you want to make. And I think it really builds on if you know your why, right? Because there's different hows in terms of how you get there. The thing in terms of the advice that I would give, one of the things that I remember someone telling me when I was in grad school in particular, when I met them, well, I met them twice, and so I forgot the first time I met them, actually. And the second time I met them, they remembered me. And they said that your reputation precedes you. And it never left me. Like, I took it as a great compliment that they thought so highly of me, but it really made a difference for how I approach things going forward. Like, every interaction, every time I had an opportunity to give back, to put my best foot forward, to really be the best that I could at whatever I was doing, because you never know, like, the way in which networks work, the way in which you'll be in spaces where people remember you regardless of whether you remember them. And you want your work to speak for itself, right? You want your work to go before you and to kind of lead before you. So that's the advice I'd give.
So we will now be transitioning to the Q&A portion. So we will now be opening up to the floor. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, and then one of our team members will pass you a microphone.
If there are no questions, we'll ask you.
What's your favorite part of your job for all of you?
So my favorite part of the job is probably the flexibility. And, you know, some of like my colleagues and I, or my friends who are also, you know, PhDs and professors, we joke and we say like we get paid to think. But it's so true. So if you do take a route that is more research oriented, that's in academia or in a research setting, oftentimes you are afforded the ability to think about complex problems and try to figure out ways to find solutions to answer hard questions. And thankfully, in academia, I think of it as like I'm a little entrepreneur, right? Like I'm setting my own agenda. I'm setting the questions that I want to ask. I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask them. I'm building my team. And I like that independence. I like that freedom to do the job in ways that are meaningful and to make the decisions that impact the problems, but also the people, right? So thinking about the students I want to hire, thinking about the types of local governments I want to engage with, or the communities that I want to engage with. I think there's a lot of autonomy, and so I really value that.
We have some similar things in common. For me, is I love a blank page, and I love to build and invent the future, and I like to co-create that future. And the current job is amazing because I get to work across 13 bureaus, and we're thinking about how do we build an economy of the future. And then I get to add to that, and how do we build an economy of the future that includes as many people who want to participate. And I always tell folks, like, if you really understand this moment, we're at the cusp of the next economic world order, of an industrial revolution where disruption is something that none of us in this room can fully understand, and yet we have to find a way that our institutions, our communities, and our nation can build this new future together, and I get to be at the table. That, for me, is a good day.
I think my favorite part of my job is it depends on the day because every day is very, very different in news. There are some days where the pressure of what is going on in the world can be the worst part of your day. But someone told me when I first started in this business, they said pressure is a privilege. And whenever I'm very stressed out from all of that pressure, I just say that to myself nonstop. Because it's very true. Like pressure can make you crumble, but also pressure can make you step up to the plate and work that much harder. And I think with my job specifically, like, yes, there is a lot of pressure, but it also, you have to remind yourself, you know, it's an honor. You have the ability to ask questions to the decision makers, decisions that the American people, I'm sure, wish that they could be in that same room asking those same questions. So pressure can be good and bad depending on how you handle it.
You need pressure to make diamonds, don't you?
Yes, that's yeah. Exactly.
Well, I first want to say, like Carlos was mentioning, you guys are all women up there, so I want to congratulate you for getting to this point that you guys are at. But my question specifically would be, there are a lot of women in here that wonder how you got to this point and how you continue to stay motivated in these workplaces where sometimes the odds are against us. So any advice that you might have for us women?
Since I haven't gone first. It's actually a topic I'm fascinated by. I'm probably one of the oldest people in this room. And when I was green, there weren't that many women. So I didn't have a mentor. I think it's different now. And the few women that I saw had to act like men to be able to fit in. And so for me, the question always is, how can you be powerful and still be a woman and be taken seriously and have the confidence? And so I think that's an evolving story as a society. We don't fully have that answer yet, and we're struggling, I think, with it. But when I look at my son's colleagues, the girls, they're kicking ass. I'm sorry. I'm worried about my son, actually, and all the other boys. And so the transition, though, is always messy, and I don't know what that looks like. So the only advice I can say is learn to be comfortable in your skin and apologize to no one for it, but be mindful of not just the women who are younger that you want to pull up, but to be honest, the older ones too. We were in isolation for so long, we need it too. And so I always look forward to working with women and empowering women, but we just didn't have the muscle memory, if you will. And so it's something we're figuring out as we go. I don't really have advice other than the last thing I'll say, and it's really interesting being from Miami, by the way, and going outside of Miami, and all of a sudden how you dress is a thing. And today I'm not even that dressed up, so I can't even say that much. But here I'm considered like, but when I worked for a bank, I worked for a big global bank. And one of the things that was interesting was the big shoulder pads, the dark suits. It's not just how you behave, but how you presented yourself. But then, just when I was leaving the bank, the first woman CEO to lead any global financial institution took the reins. And at the town hall, when she's being introduced by the leaving CEO, she comes onto stage, and she's wearing a bright blue, beautiful dress. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth was, "Oh, you're wearing a dress." That's how I know we haven't really fully made it yet, when that's the first thing that people see. So I don't have a clear answer, but I have to say it's something we're grappling and we're figuring out. And the last thing I'll say is maybe we should consider Panteras as kind of not just Panthers, but I kind of like this idea of, is there a group on campus of women? I'm curious. Do we know? No? Okay, maybe we need to start one here in DC, and I volunteered to participate if I can be a mentor to any of you.
I would add, I think when I was in grad school, I got a lot of advice about like how to dress, how to like whether or not to straighten my hair, on job interviews. And I did, I listened to the advice that I was given. So when I went on interviews, I would straighten my hair. I have tattoos on my wrists, and so I would cover my tattoos. I had blonde hair at one time, and then I dyed it before I went on the job market. And, looking back, I'm not sure it made a difference. I think the thing that makes a difference is your work. I think that it really does go before you, like the work that you put in, the networking, and the places that make decisions to not give you an opportunity because of your identity are places that you don't want to be in the end. Because there's a cost to being there, right? There's a cost to abandoning your identity and abandoning your authenticity. And lots of people pay that cost, but at the end of the day, I think now at least, I'm in a different place. And so I was making those decisions then to get a job, obviously. But now that I'm in a place where I don't have to make those decisions, I'm very mindful of the fact that, at the end of the day, I live with me, right? I'm the only one that's accountable to me. And the decisions that I make, I want to make sure that I'm making it so that I can have peace at night, but that also people who look like me know that they have a place, right? So I wear my curly hair now, I have my hoop earrings on, right? All the things. But it is because I also acknowledge that I'm in a different place of power, right, to do that. But it's important to do that, right? I know when there was this orientation I did for our students at Georgetown, and this young woman of color came up to me after, and she said, after I saw you, I knew that I made the right decision, right? And so to me, I think showing up as who I am and being authentic to that is how I try at least to make a difference in the systems that I'm in, and to try to impact change. But I realize that it's different when you're still navigating that and still trying to find a job. The only other thing I would say, though, is I did have really great mentors that were all women. Not that I didn't have good mentors that were men also, but the ones that I think about often, the ones that I go to often, were all women, and all women of color that identified in different types of ways in terms of race and ethnicity. And I look to them a lot for guidance, for leadership, and oftentimes I would find people that I thought I would want to be, right? And so I would look up a CV or a resume or what have you, and I would like reverse engineer from what I could gather about them and try to see like what were the decisions that maybe they were making, or the things that they were doing, other places they were putting themselves in to get to the position that they were in. And so I'm a firm believer, like if you see it, you can be it, right? Like if you see someone in that position, and even when you don't see it, you can be it too. Someone has to be the first. But I definitely went out of my way to find people who I could identify with that were mentors, to look to provide that guidance to me.
You guys both had amazing points. I think in the industry I'm in, it's inherently visual. So women, I think, fall into this bucket where you are automatically judged on your appearance no matter what room you step in, no matter what you're doing, because you're in TV, and that's fair game. Personally, I think the way I've combated that is, to your point about finding resumes and figuring out who in this industry occupies this space and how did they get there, and when did they get there? How far along ago were they able to make that sort of progress? Building on mentorship, keeping those relationships that I talked about, having those conversations and finding value in every conversation, keeping up with those people. A lot of time, I hear from friends who are in different industries, and they, let's say, used a contact of a contact to help them prepare to interview for a certain job. And then once they have that job, that contact kind of dies and they don't follow up with that person. I have people who, I was 18 years old and it's not every 6 months, but follow up with that person every 1 or 2 years. And when you're back home and let's say that person is around, you know that they're from that area, grab a coffee with them, let them know how you're doing. I think that has really helped me. And I also think as women, it's hard because you have to decide upon every first relationship that you make, are you going to, someone told me this once and I never forgot it, are you going to lead with strength or are you going to lead with empathy? Because when you make a first handshake with someone, a first introduction, most of the time they just remember you for one or the other. And as women, it's tricky because you don't want to immediately be taken as someone who's very strong, because that can be misinterpreted. And you also don't want to seem very soft and meek. But I think there is a middle ground. And the way you kind of supplement that if someone sees you one way or another is just by hard work and by volunteering for every opportunity that you come across. And when you do that opportunity, just work as hard as possible. And to your point about your reputation precedes you, that's how I got more than half of my jobs, is someone had heard about the work that I did on a specific task that no one else wanted to do, and I just raised my hand and volunteered. And it's true, your reputation really does precede you.
Can I add a really quick thing? There's a great Atlantic article. It's a couple of years old. It's called The Confidence Gap. And I highly, highly recommend that you go look for it, because I've had a different experience. It didn't matter how hard I worked. It wasn't ever enough. But one of the things that, after reading the article, I realized, and in the article, and I don't remember the exact, somebody put a statistic to confidence between men and women. And I'm going to make it up, but you can read the article and get the right number. But more or less, a man will raise his hand when he feels about 60% confident that he knows the material. And a woman will take up to about 90, 95%. And so the gap is not in ability, but in confidence in yourself. And so maybe one of the things you do is you raise your hand before you feel comfortable. And I'll help you get into the room.
How do you guys make opportunities for yourself when the doors are all closed? That's a good question.
I make my own doors. I'm just saying.
Thinking the same thing. Find a window, like find a back door. That's typically the way that I've gone about it, especially if it's something, I think there's a fine balance between knowing when to let something go. I don't know that balance yet. I hope to learn it one day. I think if there's things that I can't let go of that just keep coming back to me, I just find a different route to get there typically.
I think research and doing the hard work to, let's say someone tells you there's not a need, just research every molecule of whatever task or job or whatever it is till you find maybe some workaround where they may not even know there's a need and you found it and you can bring it up to them. Doesn't always work, but that's a good workaround.
Maybe the only other thing I would add is if you're looking for an opportunity that's a job, my experience, that never works. If the opportunity is what your purpose is, and you approach it from that perspective, and then you leverage the relationships that you were talking about, there was no application for this job. There was no place to send my resume. I just knew I wanted to go up a level as far as impact and be national instead of regional. And then through a relationship, to your point, when I was at the bank, of somebody who was my regulator. And so I was, if anything, we were in a combative kind of situation. I was trying to always prove to her how good we were doing. But we had a good relationship because I made sure of that. I came here for a conference. I asked her out to dinner, to your point, because I'm just curious about what she was doing. And she said, come by the office. And the office, by the way, was the White House. And I was like, sure. I'll come. And it was amazing. I just wanted to go, to be honest, be at the White House and have dinner with an old friend. And I get there, and she's like, I'm actually slammed. I can't go to dinner. I'm like, oh, then why'd you have me come out? There's a job for you, and we're going to go right now to Presidential Personnel Office, and you're to sit down for an interview. I wasn't planning to be here for the conference. There's a whole other story. And I wasn't looking for a job. But I knew my North Star, and I have good relationships, and sometimes you just have to flow and just see where it takes you.
And do you have any final more questions from the audience?
Good evening. Thanks for coming here and giving us some of your experiences with us. I think we can all agree that you all enjoyed some level of success in your time in South Florida and your academic careers that eventually springboarded you into whatever positions you grew into during your time here in DC. Can each of you kind of speak to some of the behavior modifications or lifestyle changes that proved critical, pivotal in your continued and growing success here in the DMV?
Winter clothes.
Yeah, does that count? I second that one, yeah.
So just for clarification, a behavior change from being in South Florida to being in DC. I can give you my experience. I'm not sure it's everybody's, so because I'm in government. We'll just first start with some basic things. Like in Miami, there's an hour and a half long meeting. Here it's 30 minutes. There's no time for interpersonal. You just go and you go and you go. I eat at my desk because I have to get work done. And I'm the crazy one in the 30-minute meeting. I'm like, well, can you at least tell me what you did on the weekend? Because I need to connect with you as a human being. And it's working. Because I've been here a year and I've had to do crazy things within the small time frame. But if I don't make the time to get to know the person as a human, the culture here doesn't create that space. They just want to know who you are, how close are you to power, and hurry it up. But then I need you to do something hard, and do you trust me? And so sometimes it's in those meetings, sometimes I call it barstool diplomacy after work. It's a lot of that, or coffees, or just trying to find human connection. It's not easy.
I'm so glad you went first, because something you said sparked a thought. You're so right when you say the culture doesn't automatically create that or allow it. In Miami, people run late. I'm half Cuban. We run on Cuban time. When we get there, let's go have a coffee. Let's go. It's so much more casual, and relationships just evolve. Like time is just, oh, time exists, but nobody's on like such a strict schedule. Here, yes, that is very, very different. People have a lot of things to do. The first time you meet someone, 90% of the time it's, oh, where do you work? What do you do? Instead of what's your name and where are you from? And yeah, that is a huge difference between Miami and here. And I think the way to combat that is just, this sounds so cliche, but just be yourself. Like if that doesn't exist, kind of leave that mark on that relationship that you just made and let that person know that these things are important to you, your family and where you're from. And maybe they've just kind of been disconnected from that and don't realize they're like that and they needed a little reminder. But that's been my experience.
So I hug everybody here, whether they want to or not.
Some people are a little creeped out, but I'm like, I'm from South Florida, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, or two things. You know, DC, the DMV is very diverse, but it's diverse in a different way. And so I think, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it was just something that I took for granted in South Florida. And just like, yeah, minor things in terms of just like the way in which, you know, you interact with people from like maybe a cultural perspective is different, even when people maybe look like you, or, you know, just the cultural aspect is a little bit different here, in my experience. And then the other thing I would say is that you really have to like seize the moment that you have with people, and you in like very social settings, you don't never know who's in the room. And the assumption I make is that like whoever's in the room, they're always someone who's important, right? Typically, I think in the DMV, and I use important like loosely. And so I, you know, as a caveat, I think like status and power shouldn't define importance. And so I think that's an important caveat to make because we're on YouTube. But I think in terms of if you're thinking about positions of power or positions of authority in the DMV, people are very much, you know, wanting to make sure that you kind of know where you stand with regards to where they are, and you may not ever be in a room with them again. And so I've noticed at least that like sometimes when I interact with people or when they find out what I do, they're like expecting sometimes maybe a pitch or like something that I like an ask or something. And I realized that I had to be prepared for that in a way that I don't think I necessarily thought much about in other places that I've lived in the past.
Do you have any more questions from anybody in the audience? No? Okay. Well, before we end, I would just like to say how inspiring it is to see 3 strong women, female leaders, who are FIU alumni pursuing such incredible feats in their professional careers and are continuing to inspire the next generation of leaders. So thank you for the wonderful panelists for sharing their insight, and thank you to all the guests for coming out here tonight. We have refreshments in our rotunda space, and if you have any questions about our programming or anything about FIU in Washington, D.C., you can always let us know. And thank you and have a nice evening.